What a race weekend we had. Formula 1 racing at the new circuit for them, Portamao, and the season Indycar race at St Petersburg, and the 24-hour GT race from Spa, which had Formula Renault in support. It was very busy. So let's start with Formula 1. New circuit, new surface, what could possibly go wrong? Well, we know we were off to a good start when Lance Stroll and Max Verstappen managed to collide in FP2, with words exchanged which weren't the best choice, but that's a whole other conversation. The track itself was a fantastic one, reminding lots of people of roller coasters with the ups and down, twisty turning nature. Qualifying kind of went as expected, with the Mercs out front, followed hotly by Max, with a great result for Charles Leclerc, starting fourth in the Ferrari on medium tyres, while lack of strategic flexibility left Sebastian in 15th. The race itself had a crazy start, with the mediums tyres taking several laps to switch on, and cars on the softs getting some huge gains on the first lap. Collision between Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez denting their charge to the front, while Carlos Sainz came through to the lead and Kimi Raikkonen would charge through to 6th place from 16th. Over the next few laps though, the mediums would switch on just as the softs started dropping off, and the Mercs hit the front with Bottas in first place, Lewis in second. Max, recovering from his accident, was up to third, and Charles recovering back up to fourth from 8th with the initial tyre warm-up issues which he dropped back to. Lewis to take the lead back from Valtteri on lap 20 and just drove away from the rest of the field basically. Differing tyre strategies made the midfield look unpredictable. We even had George Russell spending a large part of the race in the points, and a collision between Lance Stroll and Lando Norris dropped them down the order. Perez fought his way back up from last after his accident with Max through to 5th and came out again in 6th after his stop. Bottas then pitted for softs, but Merc weren't willing to split their strategy, so they stuck him on the same hard tyres that Lewis was on. And looking at the way the tyres worked out, it was probably a good choice, as with Max only finishing 9 seconds behind and the other drivers who went on to soft struggling for pace, it kind of looked likely that Bottas would have struggled to have kept second. At the line, Lewis led by 25 seconds, just absolutely dominant from Valtteri, with Max a further 9 seconds back. Charles Leclerc finished a further 30 seconds back and was the last driver on the lead lap. Towards the end of the race, both Pierre and Carlos got the jump on Sergio, who was struggling with tyres at this point, and a very long stint from Esteban Ocon, running 55 laps before stopping, saw him securing a strong result for himself, finishing ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, with Sebastian dragging his Ferrari up into 10th place. All of which means that Lewis jumps further ahead in the Drivers' Championship, and congratulations to him for taking a record-breaking 90-second win. Talking about his career and achievements is a video in itself. I'm sure plenty of others will be doing just that. But it's a massive achievement, maintaining the motivation and drive to continually pursue that level of excellence, so well done to him. Looking further down, the battle for 4th is a tight one, with 17 points covering the drivers from 4th to 9th. Formula 1.5 has never looked so healthy, even if the fight for the title isn't looking so hot. On to IndyCar now. The results of the previous few races meant that there's been the slimmest chance that Joseph Newgarden could still win the title, but he needed a win and a non-point scoring finish from Scott Dixon for that to happen. Still, this is IndyCar and anything is possible. Mr. Poleman Will Power chalked up his 62nd pole position and led away from the start, only to suffer a downshift issue on lap 6, dropping him to 4th. Opening first 30 laps or so were quite quiet by IndyCar standards, but the term cautions breed cautions is never so true, as a succession of accidents brought out safety cars, and as soon as the cars were released, yet more accidents would happen. Will Power, Santino Ferrucci, Connor Daly, Scott McLaughlin in his first IndyCar race before driving full-time for Penske next year, Rinus VeeKay, race leader Alexander Rossi, and Graham Rahal would all be involved in accidents, while Herter and Hinchcliffe would both outbrake themselves and have spins that dropped them down the order. Having been involved in the Rahal incident, Kimisato then collided with Askew, putting him into the wall. Meanwhile, Newgarden was doing everything he could, and when the green light flag dropped after Rahal's car was removed, he took 2 cars on the same corner to put himself into the lead, where he would stay, finishing 4 seconds ahead of Pato O'Ward, who had stayed clear of trouble, to get himself into second. It wasn't enough for Newgarden though, as Scott Dixon finished 3rd to take his 6th IndyCar title in a race where kind of survival was a result in itself. So congratulations to Scott to the title, also to Joseph Newgarden, because although he fell short in the end, he had managed to reduce the gap from what had been a points deficit of over 100 points to 17. So lots to be positive about going into next season, which is looking likely to be even better. So, sticking with single-seaters, we'll look at Formula Renault Eurocup. 2 races in support of the 24-hour Spa in late October, and yes, there was definitely weather affecting going on there, as you'd expect, leading to some interesting results. Poor qualifying on the first race had Kaya Collet starting down in 14th place and David Vidales starting from last after a grid drop, all of which meant that Victor Martins, who's currently leading the championship, started on pole and had a massive advantage over his title rivals. Franco Colapinto, starting in second on a wet track, got the jump on him though and dropped him to second, while Collet was up to 6th by the end of lap 1. Further movement after that became difficult though, as track conditions deteriorated and going offline and seeing through the spray made overtaking tricky. 13 minutes into the race, a safety car was called due to a crash at the top of Radion, scattering debris across the track and damaging part of the barriers. And with the time expected for repairs and the worsening track conditions, the race ended up being red flagged, with the win going to Colapinto from Martin, although only half points were awarded. Race 2 was even more interesting as it rained before the race and it wasn't clear what the correct tyre strategy was. Half the grid went wet, half dry. Martins, Colapinto and Collet were the first 3 on the grid, all on dry tyres, but that didn't last long as it turned out the wet tyre was the one to be on. Martin slipped back to 8th and Collet back to 11th. Ugo de Wilde shot into the lead of a great 4-way battle going on for 4th behind him. 13 minutes in, Alex Quinn went into the lead and never looked back from there. Saucy chased down Alatello for 3rd, while Alatello going wide and losing positions to both Saucy and Havencourt. 11 minutes in and the dry runners started to recover a little bit, but even Martins at this point was already running 20 seconds behind the leader. While he fought his way back up to 4th, he couldn't threaten podium places. A great win for Quinn and great podiums for de Wilde and Saucy, but the big news from the championship was Victor Martins finishing ahead of his championship rivals in both races to extend over his lead over Kyle Collet to 23 points. And we're in the same position where the championship leaders of both Formula Renault Eurocup and Formula Regional European Championships are not currently getting tests in FIA 3, which kind of shows there's a pretty serious problem with the system. But, that's my complaint for the day out of the way. Let's move on before I end up having a bit of a rant about that. Last race I'm going to talk about was the epic that was the Spa 24-hour race. It's the showcase event of the GT World Challenge, and imagine Spa, 56 cars, 24 hours, 4 different classes involving 3 different classes of driver in October. So due to the time of year, it kind of felt like about 5 minutes before night rolled in and they entered 12 hours of night racing. In the early stages, the battle for the lead was dominated by the ATA ACA ASP Mercedes of Raffaele Marcello, Felipe Fraga and Timo Boguslavski, and the 63 Orange Racing Lamborghini of Dennis Lind, Marco Mappelli and Andrea Caldarelli. But the race was a bit of a case of tortoise and the hare, as at first the ACA Mercedes entered retirement, and then around the 7 AM mark, Dennis Lind crashed the orange Lamborghini from the lead going for a Radion. And we ended up going for a period of stop-start racing as weather and other accidents caused multiple crashes over the next 2 hours. When the racing properly shook itself out, it was Audi running first and second, with the AF Corsa 51 Ferrari running in third. And coming up on them quickly though, having been pacing itself in the early stages, was the 98 Row Racing Porsche Laurens Vanthoor, Nick Tandy and Earl Bamber. Over the next few hours, we got the jump on both the 51 Ferrari and the 26 Santalok Racing Audi, before chasing down the 66 Temto Racing Audi, and with the conditions seeming to suit the Porsche better. On the 23-hour mark, the Porsche had hit the front for the first time, and the Audi would struggle to live with it from now on out. But there was still nearly a sting in the tail at the end though, as something broke on the Porsche, and with a lap and a half left, the commentators were convinced it was a gearbox problem, and the car would probably have struggled to go another 5 minutes. Now, ironically, the oil that was leaking from it onto the wet track made the conditions behind too tricky for the pursuing cars to close, and it claimed victory by the narrowest of margins for the team to claim its second 24-hour victory in GT racing this year, having also won the 24 Hours of Nürburgring earlier in the year. In the Pro-Am category, victory went to the 66 Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini of Rob and Ricky Collard, Sandy Mitchell and Leo Machitsky. Out of the 56 that started, there were only 32 finishers, so as well as congratulations to the winners, well done to all the teams that crossed the line. Yeah. Anyway, that's the racing done. Congratulations again to Lewis for his 92nd victory, Scott Dixon for his 6th title, and Rowe Racing for taking the Spa win. But that's me done for another episode. And nothing left to say then. Take care and thank you for watching.